Namaste and good evening to one and all. Welcome to Leaders Connect 360's episode LC0146. Leaders Connect 360 is CSR initiative by Bija Training and organized by the Mass Leadership. My name is Sharani and I am pursuing my final year of BCom Honors degree at SRM. Leaders Connect 360 is started with a specific objective of inviting 1,000 plus leaders and create a million leaders. It is an online hub where every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. we learn from top management leaders on Zoom Live. And once in quarter in each city, we have an offline networking meet to network, support, and grow with the leaders. That's when we call it Leaders Create More Leaders. Currently, all are muted, and we will be giving you an opportunity to speak to our guest, Mr. Ankur Bhuva, founder, leadership, Accelerator Co, and panel discussion leader, Ms.Divya, corporate trainer and coach. Before you are unmuted, let me share that we are currently live on LinkedIn and this episode LC0146 is being recorded. First time visitors may click on the WhatsApp, FB, and LinkedIn link on the chat box to get updated by joining us in creating more leaders. All in the house are requested to turn on your videos, which will help in making the episode highly interactive. So, are we all ready to interact with our guest and panel discussion leader? Then share a thumbs up or smiley emoji in the chat box. Thank you. Before the introduction of the guest, let me also introduce Mr. Pankaj, Managing Partner, Bija Training, will interact with our guest along with the panel discussion leader, Ms. Divya. I shall welcome you all. Over to you, Mr. Pankaj.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much. And I welcome everyone on behalf of DJ Training, Leaders Connect, and the Mass Leadership. Welcome, Mr. Ankur Bhuva, for taking out time and being there on our platform today. So, without taking much of the time, let me share that we are going to have a really interesting session today. And for sure, the learnings which will be shared by Mr. Ankur shall definitely help each one of us to take away at least one learning which will help us going forward. So the agenda would be as Janni has already started, and we have Ms. Divya, who's our panel discussion leader, who will be having a very interesting discussion with our guest, Mr. Ankur. Then we'll have a small quiz to understand that what people are taking away from the learning which will be shared by Mr. Ankur. So Ms. Alago will be taking a small quiz, and then we will have open question. So we'll have 3 to 4 open questions with our guest, and then there will be a summary which will be done by Mr. Giri, and then we can close the session. So without taking much of time, I would like to welcome once again Mr. Ankur Bhuva, our guest today, and Ms. Divya. Before getting on to the panel discussion, I would like Mr. Arul to play an official welcome video for our guest. So Arul, can we have the welcome video, please? Thank you so much, Arul. Thank you so much. So, Ankurji, I welcome you officially to the forum.
Thank you.
And yes, a very interesting topic, leadership in 21st century. So, welcome once again, sir.
Thank you so much, Pankaj.
Okay, so without taking much of time, Ms. Divya, over to you to have the panel discussion with our guest, Mr. Ankur.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. Good evening, all. Thank you very much, Arul, for the wonderful video. It's very inspiring. Good to see what we have achieved at some point in time in our own ways. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Ankur Bhuva. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be a panel discussion leader with you today. With all the achievements and a lot of experience you come from, I am bowed in front of you today to learn and understand the leadership what we are involved in today. So, without any further ado, like I said, so maybe we can start creating our questions. So we are talking about leadership in 21st century right now. There are two interrelated questions here. One is, how do you define this 21st century leadership? Because now we are talking too much about leadership nowadays, and then it is transformed a lot. In a decade, it has been transformed a lot. So how do you see that, sir?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Divya. And thank you, Pankaj and Arul and the rest of the team for this opportunity for me to share my humble experiences over the last couple of decades. Now, to answer that question, Divya, let me start with giving you sort of a little bit of a background and a history. And I think that's important because then it'll probably validate what I'm saying today. So I don't want to go too much back in history, but very quickly, when we look at the first industrial revolution, which transformed from manual labor to machines, and the focus there was increasing productivity through standardization. And the leadership style then prevalent was the command and control or top-down leadership style. And then came the second industrial revolution, where the focus was development of new manufacturing techniques, and the focus shifted to improving quality and reducing waste and so on and so forth. And the leadership style slowly shifted to the one which was collaborative and focused on solving problems. Right. And then came the third, where there was advent of computerization and automation, and the focus shifted slowly to developing new skills and transitioning to a digital workplace. And the leadership style shifted to one which was more focused on engagement and enabling empowerment and a participatory leadership style. Today we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and we have evolved so much, and we're integrating new technologies like AI, IoT, big data, and the focus now is shifted to all organizations navigating complexity and uncertainty. So the question now is, what's the most relevant leadership style? Well, there are numerous, as you rightly said, Divya. There's situational, democratic, transformational, servant leadership, adaptive, transactional. And to be honest, I've tried many of these over the last decade or so. But I'm going to share in my humble opinion as to what's really worked for me. And much of the conversation today will be based on the experiences that I've had. So please bear with me. So in my experience, what's really worked for me is one which is a facilitative leadership style. Now, through this leadership style, I've been able to draw a lot more from the teams that I have led or worked with or managed than I have ever in the past when I've practiced the other leadership styles. So in my humble opinion, I feel that this is one of the most powerful leadership styles, which will help us move into the next decade.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a wonderful perspective I got there. Being a trainer for a decade by myself and transforming myself to be a coach, I understand what you mean, and yeah, we have evolved a lot, sir. Now, right now, I'm talking about AI.
Yeah.
Few people talk and say that it's a threat to the humankind, and but I look at it in a very different perspective. We can learn so much from AI, and for
Absolutely.
trainers like us, it's very very great tool for us to help the society and the leadership as well. So moving on to the next question, according to you, what do you mean by this facilitative leadership? And what skills and competencies do you think they can demonstrate through this facilitative leadership?
Absolutely. Thank you, Divya. And there are a lot of definitions out there, and the facilitative leadership style is slowly gaining a lot more momentum than it ever has. But in my humble opinion, the way I define the facilitative leader is a person who is able to balance courage. Now, courage is something where the leader's ability to confront difficult decisions and challenges with integrity and fearlessness at its core. And the second is compassion, which is the leader's ability to focus on achieving results while still prioritizing the well-being of the entire team. And this, in my opinion, are the top two qualities of a facilitative leader. However, when we talk about specific skills and competencies, I would say, firstly, what I've observed is facilitative leaders are generally ones who are extremely curious. They're the ones who are inclined to seek new knowledge and perspectives, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. They're like lifelong learners who are just hungry for more and so open to learning, irrespective, as I said, where it comes from. Secondly, asking powerful questions. I believe that from a paradigm of being curious and not from a paradigm of finding out what is wrong. A lot of leaders ask a lot of questions just to try and understand what's going wrong. But if you're genuinely curious and you ask those questions, you're going to draw out so much more from the teams that you lead, right? And there's this famous quote by Socrates where he says, I cannot teach anything. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think through the questions I ask. And finally, I think the last competency that a facilitative leader demonstrates is listen with an intent to understand and not respond. I'm going to be honest, for far too long in my leadership experience, I have focused on trying to show the team and people around me how smart I am, and I would constantly listen with an intent to respond rather than an intent to understand. And I've paid a huge price. It led to a lot of misunderstanding with my teams and colleagues and stakeholders. So I feel that these are the top three skills that a facilitative leader would often demonstrate.
Lovely, wonderfully put. It's very crisp, it's very clear. The clarity is wonderful. Like, yeah, like you were talking about listening. That's a lot of the times what we do is we only listen to respond. We don't listen to understand what the other person is saying. Totally agree. I cannot agree more on what you're saying. Considering the skills again about curiosity, like I learned a lot from my children because the first thing they are, why is bus called as bus? I'm like, okay, that's a very curious question. I need to understand. So I would come back to you, is what I'm saying right now. So these are the few skills and competencies which you, as a facilitative leader, who's saying that going to be wonderful if we use that. Continuation to that question, what are the two elements that facilitative leader needs to focus on while leading their teams or organization for that matter? Nowadays, we all are turning out to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely, Divya. So I think, again, keeping the whole compassion and courage in mind. From a space of compassion, I think what's important is the first key element for a facilitative leader is to create a sense of psychological safety or a psychologically safe environment. And to validate this, there was a study done by Google. And this was, I think, way back in 2008, where they called it the Project Oxygen, right? And what they did was they did an analysis of managers and leaders and their effectiveness and the key behaviors these managers and leaders portrayed. So they went over at least about 10,000 different observations, which included performance reviews, feedback, conversation, and so on and so forth. And the initial findings were pretty interesting. They identified the top traits of really effective managers and leaders. And what's interesting, the first on that list was a leader who empowers and does not micromanage, right? And well, this study proves that employees crave, what employees really crave for most is a sense of psychological safety at the workplace. Now, the question is, why is psychological safety so important? I have experienced this firsthand. So, Divya, is it okay if I quickly share a personal example of mine? Okay, wonderful. Okay. So, a number of years back, and I don't want to mention which organization and who, but a number of years back, I worked in an organization where I experienced workplace bullying. Well, I was so naive that I didn't even realize that I was being bullied for a long time, right? There were days when I would go back home and literally cry because I was because I was treated really badly by my boss. And while this impacted me, what impacted me even more was that I was so absorbed in my feelings that I was emotionally unavailable for my caring wife and my two wonderful children. And I would, for no reason, get angry, yell, and shout. And I behave the same way sometimes, even on the road. And I'm sure you've seen people behave that way. And I'll be honest, I hated being me during that time. But I really felt helpless because I had to continue to work to provide for my family. And I was emotionally scarred by this entire experience. And it took me years to to forgive my manager and make peace. And this experience got me to deeply believe that, what I really craved for the most at that time was a sense of psychological safety, the sense of just going to a workplace where I would not be treated badly, and my colleagues and people around me not being treated badly. And that's why I believe that a facilitative leader is one. And the first and foremost job is to, from a space of compassion, is to create a psychological safe environment for their teams. So this is the first element that I think is critically important for a facilitative leader. The second comes from a space of courage, right? And this is around establishing powerful systems. Now, what I believe is we are a creature of habit, right? Everything that we do is based on habits that we've created, and it's our brain. Uh, it's because our brains have been created in such a way that we need to make everything a habit, right? Some people say that our brain is 90% subconscious and 10% conscious. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist to be able to definitively say that what the percentage is, but in my own experience, I know that our subconscious mind has a lot more control over our day-to-day activity than our conscious mind. And similarly, when I used to think about my team members, what did my team members expect? So one is psychological safety, but second is when they came to work, they needed to know what to expect on a day-to-day basis. Because if they did not know that, then they would fall back on doing things that they habitually did. So I realized that I had to create strong and powerful systems to be able to help my team members understand what was expected of them first, and second, what actions and behaviors helped achieve those outcomes, right? So Aristotle has an, excuse me, there was an interesting quote by Aristotle. He says that we are what we do repeatedly. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. So I believe that facilitative leaders' responsibility is to really create powerful systems which are powerful but also in the right direction towards helping them achieve the outcomes. Because I also believe another thing, that everybody in the team loves to be part of a winning team. None of us love to be part of a losing team, irrespective of how safe and how wonderful we
Motivating
feel,
it is.
yeah, with the team members or with the leader. So it's extremely important for leaders to build or establish a powerful system. So the two elements, according to me, just to quickly summarize, is creating a psychologically safe environment, and second is establishing powerful systems.
Empowerment.
Absolutely.
Wonderfully said, sir. I'm noting down on the points which will personally help me in different avenues. So the deeper you went today was very, very touchy for all of us. At one point in time, I think all of us had gone through the same scenario which you shared with us. As women, we go through that in the name of stereotype. We go through in the name of labeling. A lot of things we go through, but then coming out of it and creating a safety, psychological safety, safe environment for ourselves is a challenging situation almost on everyday basis. But we are proud that where we stand today, and we teach our children that this is a need and necessity for today. So I think talking about it makes a lot of sense about elements when we talk about the facilitative leadership.
Yeah.
Great. Moving
So
on.
Divya, can I just add something there? I think we looked at the evolution of the workplace, right? And the first industrial revolution was all about command and control. It's really unfortunate to see that we are now in the knowledge worker age, and unfortunately a lot of leaders still demonstrate the whole command and control sort of a leadership, which was important back then. It's not that it was not. Then when we
It worked out those days. It worked out, but now I don't think.
Yeah, because then in the manufacturing space or in the industries, one mistake could literally lead to somebody getting injured critically or dying, or even stopping the production completely, leading to huge losses to the organization.
Exactly.
But today we are in a knowledge worker age, and the way we lead has to significantly change.
So true, so true. I am the living example, because earlier, I think everybody in our age and place were like dominated by our teachers, by our mentors, by the coaches we had gone through. Everybody used to only tell us. There is no discussion. But now it is all changing. It has always been directive for us. We cannot use our ideas. If we do, then it becomes very weird and crazy.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm
that's
happy.
why Yeah, and that's why I believe a facilitative leader, what he does or she does is they're able to tap into the creative genius of their team members by being extremely curious, by asking those questions, by drawing out what the genius that exists in every team member. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders don't tap into that, and what happens is they make decisions based on their limited limited information or intelligence. But once they tap into the group intelligence, there's so much more that they can achieve.
The open mindedness and the welcoming nature of ideas, I think it will take us for a long while. Great. It's
Absolutely.
lovely, lovely talking, sir. And then I'm going to go ahead with the last question of today.
Please. Yeah.
What are the top 2 barriers you call for a facilitative leader to overcome or need to be overcome to be able to transform their team or organization? Like what I understand by this question is it's more of a barriers for, I think without rules, nothing works out nowadays. So maybe we just need a loophole to understand it better and then work it out in our day-to-day life.
Absolutely. And I'll share my experience. Again, as I said, this entire talk is about me sharing my experiences. So, the barriers that I experience. And is it okay if we do a quick activity, Divya?
Sure. Please.
And I would invite all our guests here to participate with me. And I know there are still some on who've logged in but have not switched their video on. If you can, for just about the next 20-30 seconds, switch on your video. It'll be absolutely wonderful, right? So we're going to do a quick activity. So I want all of you to, raise your dominant hand. See, for me, my dominant hand is my right hand. For you, it could be left. So raise your dominant hand and make a fist like this. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. And now raise your non-dominant hand and put it this way. Now, all you have to do is push the non-dominant hand with the dominant hand. Go ahead, push it harder. Go ahead, come on, push it harder. Yes, push it harder. All right, okay, thank you. Now, I'm going to say something to my non-dominant hand. While I say it out loud, you say it in your mind, okay, to your non-dominant hand, all right? All right, listen, non-dominant hand. This is just an activity. It is not a competition, all right? So relax. You're not going to get hurt and you're safe, all right? Now put it back up and now put your dominant hand and push. And push. All right, thank you so much for participating. Now, I want to take a moment to ask all of you, when you put your hand up and you put your dominant hand to your non-dominant hand, what did you experience first?
Well, it's some sort of a feng shui something.
Yeah, it was stagnant actually. It was stagnant.
Yeah.
We were not able to push it.
It was not able to
rather
push
than
it.
pushing it, what I would say is I thought this is how it's supposed to be. I need to, cross push this and push that, and then it has to be stagnant, like Pankaj was saying. Yeah, he was right.
While I understood the non-dominant hand had no rules, only the dominant hand had to act.
Yeah.
By default, I understood it. I mean, I took it as a competition, so it started resisting.
Exactly.
So true.
Exactly. And that's how we are wired, right? Everything for us is competition or resistance.
Correct.
Okay. Just imagine, one of the biggest challenges that I experienced as a facilitative leader when I was working with teams is they would resist for everything. No reason, but just resist. Only resist. So, and that, just imagine that our right hand doesn't agree, our left hand doesn't agree with our right hand. How much more will people we work with don't agree with what we have to get them to do? So one of the biggest challenges that facilitative leaders experience is resistance. And we saw that real time, within us, there's so much resistance. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, why is there resistance, right? We little earlier spoke about how our subconscious mind is created and it creates habits. Similarly, our subconscious mind is the reason for this resistance. Why? Because our subconscious mind is programmed to keep us safe. So, all of us are leaders over here and we've led teams. And you know that sometimes you want to implement something which you believe, and the team also knows that it's the right thing to do. It'll make things better, a new process, a new tool, a new technology. It'll make things better, but that you experience resistance. Why? Because even though it is a good thing to do consciously, the subconscious is programmed to keep you safe. So anything that changes, there is resistance initially. And that is the biggest challenge that a facilitative leader experiences. However, a facilitative leader also understands how you can break that resistance down one knock at a time. And there are ways to do it that a facilitative leader does it. And the only way you do it is when you make that decision not yours, but theirs. And that's where asking powerful questions, being extremely curious, listening with an intent to understand comes in. And once you do that, they will realize that the decision was theirs, and they convince their subconscious mind through their conscious mind that this is the right thing for me. And that's when you as a leader will stop experiencing that resistance and letting them be more open. So I think that's the first barrier to resistance. The second barrier to resistance is, okay, let me not tell you what it is right now, but let me give you a very, very interesting story. And this real life situation has captivated me ever since I heard it. All right. So I'll set context very quickly. This was back in 2010. And this happened in Bangalore, Karnataka, the roads of Bangalore, right? Ever since it has been crowded, there's been a lot of traffic. But back in 2010, for those who were in Bangalore in 2010, you will realize that in 2010, they rolled out these nice, expensive, cherry red Volvo buses, the first of its kind with the air conditioning and all of that, right? And these air-conditioned buses often, ferried between from Marthali, Whitefield towards Indiranagar and other areas of Bangalore. Now, there were a number of accidents, one which involved a HAL employee who was crossing the road and he was run over by this Volvo bus. And when that happened, the other employees of HAL stopped the bus, beat the driver up, burnt that bus, which almost costed then about 90 lakhs to a crore, right? Now, these kind of incidences started happening very often, especially with the Volvo buses, because the buses are powerful, very nice to drive, extremely smooth. And this led to a lot of losses to the BMTC. And the BMTC and the government tried a number of things to educate these bus drivers, talk to them about, how it is important to be safe, manage these buses more effectively, and so on and so forth. But nothing happened. The number of accidents continued to increase, and they continued to experience losses. Now, the solution was quite interesting. And this is a solution that the government did not plan. It just happened. This was way back in this was a few years later in 2014. If all of you remember, in 2014, another incident happened. In Karnataka, the ambulance drivers went on strike. And they went on strike because they were demanding, higher pay, better working condition, lesser shift timings, and so on and so forth. And the government was in a fix because they had to ensure that ambulances don't stand still, but they continue to ply. So somebody came up with this brilliant idea saying that, hey, you know what? What's more important is the ambulances rather than the buses. So they got these BMTC drivers to start driving the buses. Start driving the ambulances. And I saw this really interesting article I read in the newspaper about the Times of India journalist. After 3 days of driving the ambulance, she went and interviewed this one person, one BMTC bus driver who's driving an ambulance. His name is Manjunath. And she went to Manjunath and said, Manjunath, you've been driving an ambulance for 3 days, right? It's interesting. Tell us a little about your experience. Like, what did you experience? And Manjunath very fondly closed his eyes and he thought about his experiences. And he said, on the first day, there were no calls for a really long time. And then finally I got a call to rush a pregnant woman to the hospital. So I immediately went to the spot, took her, and she had some complication and she was in extreme pain. And I rushed her to the hospital, and gladly she gave birth to a baby girl. And her relatives came and thanked me, and they also gave me sweets, and that felt really good. And she's like, wow, that's so interesting, Manjuna. Tell me more. And he said, the next day I got a call. My supervisor called me and he said, you immediately have to go to the spot. There's an old woman who fell in the bathroom and she's injured her head really badly and she's bleeding. And he went to there and, picked her up and rushed her to Nimans. And she was in a very critical condition. And he said, but by God's grace, the doctor says she will survive. So the journalist said, you went and checked in on her. He said, yeah, I've just felt it was my moral responsibility to know if she was doing well. Then the journalist says, okay, Manjunath, so tell me what happened the third day. Did anything happen? He said, yeah, on the third day, I rushed to a spot on the road where there was an accident victim, and he was bleeding profusely. And while it was so terrifying, what was deeply moving for me was when I saw how concerned his family members were for his well-being. And and then, Manjunath says that, when we drive the BMTC buses, if people don't get one bus, there's always another one to pick them up. But when driving an ambulance, an emergency service, there's no question of a second chance. You are late, you lose a life. And then Manjunath, I mean, the journalist finally asked Manjunath, saying that, Manjunath, now what? You're going to go back to driving a bus? And Manjunath says, I'm going to go back to driving a bus, but I now realize the value of somebody's life. I now realize what will happen to their family if they don't go back home that day. And I realize how it's going to destroy their families. So what's amazing is, in spite of the efforts and the millions spent in educating bus drivers, the government didn't make any progress. But this 3-day ambulance strike was able to change this bus driver's paradigm towards how he saw his role in terms of ferrying passengers, and also how the power that he had in his hand and how it could destroy a life. So the second barrier that facilitative leaders need to overcome is to move away from thinking about results all the time to focusing on shifting the way people see their role, which is shifting their paradigm. And once the shift in paradigm happens, like in the case of Manjunath, the results follow, right? And this was one of the most powerful experiences I've had in enabling me to work with my team and people I work with, to help them see how is their role contributing, and not what they are contributing. And that was a powerful shift for me. So back to you, Divya.
That was wonderfully said. It was a narrative on the go. It was curious, like you were telling me, what next, what happened. Yeah, it is a change of perspective, and it could change. Small things can change our thought process very much. And your story, the story which you were explaining, was very impactful. Yeah, the barriers are something, like you said, simple things like resistance. And one more simple thing is, it's not always the results, it will come to you. Just focus on what you are wanting to do. I think that is a clear message and a very wonderful story narrated by you. It's very impactful. I believe the members of our episode as well is enjoying the episode today, because it's been very insightful, very deep diving conversations. And the clarity you give on every context we talk is very mind blowing and amazing. You have, I mean, what I feel is that rather than talking about under the sky everything, like we talk about one specific stuff and we revolve towards that. And that's where you actually ended up saying that focus on what you want to do, the results will come. So it's all towards the same thing. So it's great having a conversation with you. A lot of insights today, a lot of learning today. We will keep in touch in the LinkedIn as well, and we will keep learning together. It is wonderful interacting with you, Ankur. So the next two, I think we will have a small quiz. As Pankaj was talking, we will have other things to do. Go ahead. So I'll leave Pankaj to it now, so that we can continue with the episode today.
Thanks, Divya. Thank you so much for a wonderful panel discussion and wonderful, panel discussion taken by Mr. Ankur. And let me tell you one thing, sir. I mean, you have been talking about leadership. You talked about leadership. You have taken your personal examples, personal experiences, but you missed on to talk about a secret attribute, which I can see. That's the smile which is on your face and the positivity. Okay, that's what I was, looking at. I mean, anyone who look at you, I mean, the kind of positivity which we can see on your face and the smile, I believe that is also one of the secret ingredient or the attribute which you carry to lead your people. And I believe that is also important for people to have that sort of leadership which we are talking about. So that is somewhere missing these days in leaders actually. So I'm really happy to see a happy man this evening, and I also try and have that smile on the face, because that is more important, sir. So I'm sorry to question you that you have missed on
Not at all.
sharing something, but these
So
are the
like
two secret attributes, actually.
Thank you
like
so much.
Simon Sinek says, let the actions inspire other leaders, right? So
True,
I
true,
think your
true.
action has inspired a lot of people today, sir.
Thank you so
Seriously,
much.
sir, seriously.
Appreciate
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to connect you today. And I've already shared my request on LinkedIn to you.
Absolutely.
So let's look
Yeah.
forward to
I
connect
look
more.
forward.
So
Same
we'll
here.
not take much of time. Divya, over to you for a quick quiz and let's see what people have, attained by having this 35 minutes talk with Mr. Ankur. So over to you, Divya.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. So I do not have a lot of time to type here, so I am reading it out for you all. I just have one question based on the initial conversation we had. So when we were talking about evolving of leadership in the 20th century towards the decade, so Anku was talking about three C's. So if anybody could write down the three C's in the chat box, and that person would be the winner of today. Okay. Prabhakaran says competition. Okay, let's wait for others. He was talking about three C's, how we have evolved, and in fact, the competencies and the skills also. So you can include that as well if you've been a part of competencies and skills. So there are three C's he's mentioned very interestingly. So if anybody could list that out for me. Did I make some difficult question? Nobody's answering. Okay, I'll give you a clue. One of it talks about being brave. That the other word for brave. Lovely. Prabhakaran
Good
says
one.
courage. Waiting for a couple of other things. You're close.
One more.
One more to go. Complexity. My God, I'm learning now. Right. I think Prabhakaran sir got all three of it, isn't it? So yes, sir, you're right. But there is
So
one
it goes
more.
to him only.
No. I'll
No?
I'll take courage. I'll take compassion. There is one more thing which is very, very important and interesting. We've been talking about it for the entire episode. So he's given two answers correctly. I'm looking for only one. I still give it to Prabhakaran sir so far as well. So two C's are courage and compassion. One more. And for Ankur being very positive person, I don't think he would ever talk about competition.
True,
So you
true,
might
true.
want to think about it. Right, I'd still give it to Prabhakaran sir. Let me add on to one more thing. He was talking about curious. He was talking about courage, compassion, and curious.
Curiosity.
Correct. So these are all the three skills and competencies to evolve in our 21st century leadership. Thank you very much for participating. Congratulations, Mr. Prabhakaran sir. As usual, you've been a star of the week. The gifts will be on the way to you from Bija as well. Thank you very much for participating. Lovely interacting with you all. Have a wonderful week ahead.
And I believe this entitles Mr. Prabhakaran to ask a quick question to our guest. So,
Certainly.
Prabhakaran sir, if you have any question, you can ask him. Yes.
I don't have a question, but the content that you delivered during this half an hour to 45 minutes is worth reading as a book. So when is that going to
So true.
happen?
So true.
Thank you so much. You've just challenged me to think bigger, and I will humbly accept it, and I'll work towards it. Thank you, Prabhakaran.
We look forward, sir. We
Thank you
look
so much.
forward.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
we keep the room open for next 2-3 questions. If you have a quick question, you can ask to our guest, Mr. Ankur, and then we move forward. So, any of the guests, if you have any question, please unmute yourself or raise your hand, and you can ask the question to our guest. So, yes, Giri sir, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Pankaj sir. And thank you, Ankur sir. Really, you are connected very well today with your powerful personal stories.
Thank you.
And one thing is, already you told about the people who they are working. Now it's opposite. As an entrepreneur, we are in the situation we don't know how to handle them.
Mm. Right.
So if you can help me as an entrepreneur to tackle the employees, that will be helpful for me. Thank you.
Absolutely, Giri. I'm just going to go back to what I shared during the session. I believe, when I struggled with leading teams, and I think I also struggle sometimes with leading my own children because both of them, one is a teenager and one is just going to get into the teenage phase of her life. I think what is very important is first you begin with a sense of curiosity. If you are curious, that's half the battle won. Second is ask them questions. Oftentimes, what we do is we tell them what to do, but I can't control my 15-year-old son. I can't tell him anything to do. But I realize the minute I ask him and give him a choice, there is a higher tendency that he will do something about it. So first, be extremely curious. Second is ask questions and ask a lot of questions with an intent to understand where they're coming from. And third is to listen with an intent to understand. So if you do these three things alone, Giri sir, you'll make a significant see, I'll tell you one thing. I'll give you a quick analogy if that's okay. I know we are a little out of time, but this is really powerful. Another analogy, just look at everybody, like how bank account works. You put deposits, and once you have some deposits, only then you can withdraw money from it, right? But if you try to withdraw money from an empty bank account, it's going to go into overdraft. That's how we all are. There's something called emotional bank account. So when you listen to somebody, you've actually made a deposit in their emotional bank account. And the more you ask them questions and listen with an intent to understand, your deposit in their bank account increases. And someday when you want to make a withdrawal, there is a deposit, which is when you ask them to do something, they are more willing to do, right? So oftentimes leaders forget that first they have to make deposits, only then they can withdraw. Most leaders try to withdraw when there's no deposits, and that is where
True.
people don't listen to them. So just remember that, Giri, and that'll help you a lot.
Thank you.
Excellent answer, Aman. So, Giri sir, I hope you have got the answer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
anyone else want to ask any question? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, or else we move forward. Any question? Okay, fine. So, we'll not take much of the time. I would like to invite Mr. Giri for the summary of the session. So today, Mr. Giri is going to do the summary of the session done by our guest, Mr. Ankur. Over to you, Mr. Giri.
Thank you, Pankaj sir, and thank you, Arul, for this wonderful opportunity. And Ankur sir, really, it's a wonderful session. As we in BNA, we will tell fact tells, story sells. So like that, everything your personal story has connected very well. Thank you for this. And how do you define the question started with Divya? It's a very wonderful question. The 21st leadership. It starts from industrial revolution. It's a collaborative and problem solving, automation, digital workplace and engagement. And then finally, everything finishing with the artificial intelligence. And finally, it's a navigating and complexity and the next decade. When it coming to a very good terminology, the facilitative leadership. It's a balance, courage, and a different dimension of challenges, compassionation, and where it comes from. It's from lifelong learner, and then everything starts from powerful questions. And the one word I heard is paradigm of questions. It's almost subconscious mind questions. We cannot teach them, but we can make them to think. Like that, the quote you have given is excellent. And mostly, constantly, we have to listen to respond. And the focus is the key for everything. And serving of psychology, safety, and the project oxygen. When you are comparing with the 10,000 reviews, the top three leaders, empower and micromanagement, courage and powerful systems, and creation of habits. Everything comes from creating of a habit. Subconscious mind, lot more controlling our conscious mind. If they did not know that the outcome will differ, what we do is repeatedly powerful system, and with the right direction, everything is everyone is in want to winning team, not losing team. And as a company, We have to create establishing powerful systems and the evolution of command and control. The way lead significantly changes, and the genius existence in every team, and group intelligence is the best. And then when you are coming with one exercise, that's a dominant hand and non-dominant hand, even our hand is resisting, but how we can going to control our employees, like that you are connected very well. Finally, everything we have to control with our subconscious mind is a resistance mind, and people will always resist anything. People will resist, but one knock at a time. At the time only I am connecting with Bruce Lee. It's connecting the one kick with the 10,000 10,000 or 1,000 times, like that. I am connected very well, and everything we have to convince our subconscious mind and letting more open. In 2010, you are given excellent example of Karnataka, why these Volvo bus drivers made more accidents. And then in 2015, they became as ambulance driver. They know the value of every accident, how the people are suffering. Like that, Manjunath experience is as a ambulance driver is emotionally connected very well, that he has saved that pregnant lady, and then one of the bleeding injury for a old member, old lady. There are so many examples you are given. There is no second chance. Value of somebody life is more important. Destiny of life, bus driver paradigm. Really, this word is a paradigm. The bus driver's paradigm is an excellent word. Again, you are connecting with the paradigm shift. Then thinking about results is not important. It has to be connected with the outcome. How is the role going to contribute? Focus what you do, results will come. I think finally I have to finish with this. Divya has helped me with this answer. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I hope I did some correct summarization. Thank you, Arul, and thank you, Pankaj sir. Anything you can forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giri sir. You have really done well, and we can say that you have done justice to the role actually. So thanks for summarizing it well, and I can sense, I mean, the kind of smile is coming from Ankur. So he is also able to relate that what we started with and what he ended with, and you've been able to do it in just a couple of minutes. So thanks for doing that, sir, for everyone, for us. Thank you so much for all. So here, without taking much of time, we are already reaching 7:30. I would like to thank each one of uh, the visitors of out here, and special mention to Ankur sir. Thank you so much for being there, being a wonderful speaker, guest. And one thing today I'm taking away is your smile, sir. I will also try and put it, because at times it happens, we miss on that. We don't even realize that we are not having it, but that really helps, and that really creates a lot of positivity, which helps things ease out for everyone, sir. So thank you so much, all the visitors once again. And Arul, I would like to play the thanking video for all of us. And I would request all the visitors to keep joining, keep coming, and invite more and more people, because the motto is to create more and more leaders. So thank you so much once again, everyone. Have a great evening. Arul, can we have the thanking video, please? Thank you so much, Arul. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ankur sir. We'll connect soon. We look forward to connect. Thank you. So Arul, over to
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
having